You read the title, no need for an intro, let's get right into it. So by far the biggest reason I switched from Premiere Pro to DaVinci Resolve was the color grading. DaVinci Resolve is a node-based editing software. So think of each node as an adjustment layer in Premiere Pro where each node is affecting what happened before it. So this node workflow allows for an easy and clear progression of your color grading workflow. I find I'm able to really dial in the exact look I'm looking for with multiple nodes as opposed to the layers in Premiere Pro. As a sports videographer, I rarely have time to make specific changes to the exposure or white balance. So I often come back from games with mismatched white balance and exposure. In Premiere Pro, I used to have a nightmare trying to match all of those shots together. But in DaVinci Resolve, with the workflow it has set up, I find it easy to be able to make small changes to my image to really match those shots together. And what I think is one of the coolest parts is as you're beginning, you can buy these things called power looks. And that's essentially a LUT, except for it's a whole node structure with the changes made in DaVinci Resolve. So you can go in and adjust each parameter to your liking. This allows you to kind of get a better understanding for how nodes work without having to do it all yourself as you're starting. And the biggest piece I love about the color grading in DaVinci Resolve is the color space management. I can basically go into DaVinci and tell them what camera I shot on and in what color profile. So I can go say I shot my C70 in C-Log2 and then tell DaVinci to convert that to Rec. 709. What I personally like to do is I convert it from C-Log2 to something called DaVinci Wide Gamut and then make all my changes and then convert it from DaVinci Wide Gamut to Rec. 709. This is a more advanced step, but it's basically allowing you to work in a color space that is less compressed than Rec. 709 and gives you more room to make these changes. I could definitely do some more videos on DaVinci Resolve in the future if you guys are interested in kind of learning about what that looks like. The second biggest reason I changed was the performance. Anyone who has used Premiere Pro knows that it likes to crash a lot. I've been using DaVinci for almost 4 months now and it has not crashed a single time. I'm able to play back my heavy C70 files without a proxy at full resolution, even with multiple effects stacked on top of it. Premiere Pro simply could not do that, even with my new updated M2 Mac. This saves me so much time and headaches not having to deal with skip frames or crashing projects. And then DaVinci also has this feature called Live Save, so basically I can just close the program, whatever, and it's gonna save. So I don't have to worry about saving every 10 seconds like I did in Premiere Pro. I just know it's gonna automatically save it for me. The third main reason I switched was just the overall workflow of DaVinci Resolve. Just little things like stabilizing clips, adding keyframes are just so much easier in DaVinci. In Premiere Pro, like you can't make those changes after speed ramping or making other effects on the clip. You used to have to nest it, but just things work so much better in DaVinci. So I can speed ramp a clip, add an effect, and then stabilize it after, and then keyframe position, all of that. It's just the little details like that that make working in this program so much more enjoyable. So as part of the workflow, I was worried about giving up the dynamic link between Premiere Pro and After Effects, but as I've progressed in my career, I found myself using After Effects less and less. So that dynamic link is something that I'm willing to give up. And DaVinci does actually have something called Fusion built into it, which is a compositing software similar to After Effects. I haven't had the chance to fully learn that yet, but I'm definitely excited to learn about that as it is integrated into DaVinci and you don't have to have two separate programs. But for the time being, I do still have access to the Creative Cloud, so if I need to do some more advanced effects, I can bring a clip to After Effects and then bring it back to DaVinci. The fourth main reason I switched to DaVinci is the overall interface. So DaVinci has clearly put a lot of thought into how they designed the layout. Each tab is its own step of the creative process. So there's the media tab where you bring in clips, there's the cut tab where you make your selects, the edit tab where you put together your whole edit, the fusion tab where you add any compositing or effects, the color tab where you do color, and then the Fairlight tab where you do audio, and then the export tab. I just think this clear progression really lets me separate the workspaces and focus on each individual aspect. I find it much more efficient than closing and opening windows in Premiere Pro. I like being able to quickly go from color grading to audio, back to editing, back to color grading very quickly. And then finally, arguably the biggest pro about DaVinci Resolve is the price. So DaVinci offers a free version, which has most of the features of the studio version, or the studio version, which is a one-time payment of $295. Even the studio version, after a couple years, will end up being cheaper than the monthly payments of the Adobe Creative Cloud. So I could just keep going on and on about things that I love about DaVinci Resolve, but then this video would take forever. So I'm gonna share a couple downsides that I've dealt with in DaVinci Resolve. So I only have three main ones. The first one is the lack of customizability. So you can't move your program monitor or the timelines anywhere you want. You can do a video clean feed, which I do, but I really miss the freedom to move whatever you want, wherever you want in Premiere Pro. The second biggest gripe I have is the speed ramping process. So basically there's just a lot of steps where you have to open a graph, add a speed point, lower the speed, and it just takes too long, especially since there's no shortcut for adding a speed point, which I am begging DaVinci to add. I think part of it is that I'm so used to speed ramping in Premiere Pro. I'm sure as I practice more with DaVinci, I'll get more used to it, but so far, my experience speed ramping has not been great in DaVinci. And then the third thing is just the stupidest little thing, but for some reason on a trackpad, they don't let you pinch to zoom in the timeline. You have to hold Option and swipe up with your fingers. I just think this is really annoying, and I feel like it should be pretty easy to just add a pinch to zoom, so hopefully they add that in a future update. These are very small things, and in the grand scheme of the program, I am so happy I switched from Premiere to DaVinci. I'm definitely happy with it. I'm not gonna go back to Premiere Pro anytime soon. I'm very excited to see what kind of updates that Blackmagic brings to DaVinci Resolve in the future, and I'm excited to continue learning the software. So if I were you, I'd say download the free version, start messing with it, leave a comment if you have any questions about it, and I look forward to making some more videos on DaVinci in the future, and thank you guys for watching.